Under the shimmering glow of crystal chandeliers, I stood in the shadows of the Anderson Technology Gala, a solitary figure amidst Silicon Valley's glittering elite. The air buzzed with ambition, champagne flutes clinking like whispered promises of power. My sister Sophia, radiant at 32, held court near the center of the ballroom, her laughter a calculated melody that drew executives like moths to a flame. I sipped my sparkling water, watching her gesture with the confidence of someone who believed the world was hers to command. Little did she know, as she boasted of her $4 billion merger, that I held the secret that would unravel her triumph and our family's carefully polished legacy before the sun rose tomorrow. Sophia's voice carried over the hum of conversation, sharp and self-assured. The merger with Sterling Industries will redefine the tech landscape, she declared, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Anderson Tech will dominate the market. My team's been relentless for months. I suppressed a smile, knowing exactly how long her team had worked and why their deal was built on sand. I leaned against an ornate pillar, my modest black dress a deliberate contrast to the designer gowns swirling around me. At 35, I'd learned the power of being underestimated, especially by those who shared my blood. Gabriella, stop lurking. My mother's voice sliced through my thoughts, her tone laced with exasperation. She glided toward me, her diamond necklace glittering like her disapproval. It's embarrassing. I stepped forward, bracing for the familiar script of these galas. Sophia's star would shine, while my choices would be dissected like a failed experiment. Sophia was just telling us about the Sterling merger, my mother continued, her pride palpable. 32, and already vice president of acquisitions. We always knew she'd soar. Unlike some, my father added, his gaze pinning me. At 58, Richard Anderson still commanded any room, his tailored tuxedo masking the strain of recent months at Anderson Tech. His words stung, but I'd grown accustomed to their barbs. I took another sip of water, my expression neutral. Gabriella's still chasing that startup dream, Sophia said with a dismissive wave, her smirk as sharp as her stilettos. What's it called again? Some software thing? Nexus Technologies, I replied softly. We develop advanced cybersecurity solutions. Right, Sophia drawled, twirling her champagne flute, tinkering with computers in a garage somewhere. She didn't know that somewhere was the top 5 floors of Silicon Valley's most prestigious office tower. I kept that truth locked away, just as I'd kept silent about so much over the past 3 years. My mother sighed, adjusting her necklace. I don't understand why you waste your time with that small business nonsense. You could have been in management at Anderson Tech by now. I bit back a retort, thinking of the documents waiting in my office. Papers that would reveal who truly held the reins. Speaking of management, my father interjected, his voice booming, Sophia's merger is historic, the largest acquisition in Anderson Tech's history, nearly $4 billion with contracts signed tomorrow morning. Every major news outlet will be there, Sophia added, her eyes gleaming. It's a done deal. I glanced at my watch, a simple timepiece that belied my ability to outbid every jewel in this room. I should head out, I said, my tone even. Early meeting tomorrow. Sophia's perfectly arched eyebrows rose. Oh? Finally landed a real client? Her laughter was a blade, swift and cutting, something like that, I murmured. Don't let us keep you from your little startup, she said, waving me off. Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close. As I turned to leave, my mother's stage whisper followed me. She just works at some startup. It's rather embarrassing. I wove through the crowd, nodding politely to tech moguls who had no idea I was the elusive CEO they'd been clamoring to meet. Outside, the cool night air brushed my skin, and I allowed myself a small, private smile. Tomorrow, my family will learn that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had been building an empire right under their noses. And when the cameras rolled, it wouldn't be Sophia's name on the headlines. The gala's golden light faded as I slipped into the back of a modest sedan, leaving the Bentley I preferred tucked away in my garage. My driver, Thomas, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Home, Miss Collins?" he asked, using the name I'd adopted in the business world. I shook my head, pulling out my phone. "The office first, Thomas. I need to review everything for tomorrow." As we pulled away from the Anderson Technology Gala, the weight of my family's words, embarrassing, small time, failure, fell away like a discarded mask. In their world, I was Gabriella Anderson, the disappointing daughter. In mine, I was Catherine Collins, the architect of a $12 billion cybersecurity empire, and tomorrow, those worlds would collide. A message from Marcus, my chief operating officer, lit up my screen. All set for tomorrow. Anderson Tech has no idea what's coming. I smiled, the city's neon lights blurring past my window. For 3 years, I'd built Nexus Technologies in the shadows, using shell companies to shield my identity as founder and CEO. While my family mocked my garage startup, I'd created one of the most formidable cybersecurity firms in the world, operating across 20 countries. My phone buzzed again, a family group text from my mother. Sophia's big day tomorrow. Watch the morning news for the Sterling merger signing. I closed my eyes, the irony sharp enough to cut. They had no idea the news would tell a very different story. The sedan glided to a stop outside Nexus's headquarters, a sleek tower that dominated Silicon Valley's skyline. I stepped out, my heels clicking against the marble lobby as I rode the private elevator to the 50th floor. My office was no garage. It was a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below like a chessboard I'd mastered. I settled at my desk, the documents for tomorrow's meeting spread before me. They detailed the truth about Sterling Industries, security breaches, outdated infrastructure, and a valuation far below the $4 billion Anderson Tech believed. My team had uncovered these flaws months ago, flaws that Sophia's due diligence had missed entirely. I flipped through the pages, each one a testament to the empire I'd built. 3 years ago, I'd walked away from Anderson Tech, my warnings about their vulnerabilities dismissed as jealousy. Now, those same vulnerabilities had led them to this moment, betting everything on a merger that didn't exist. Sterling wasn't signing with Anderson Tech tomorrow. They were signing with Nexus, a takeover I'd orchestrated in secret. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sarah, my assistant. Final reports are ready. Press release is prepped. I typed back, hold until I give the word. The office was quiet, save for the hum of the city below. I stood, crossing to the window, the lights of Silicon Valley twinkling like stars I'd aligned. My family thought they knew success, titles, galas, billion-dollar announcements. But I'd learned a different truth. Success was in the silent moves, the plans no one saw coming. Sophia's smug laughter echoed in my mind, her little startup jab, a reminder of why I'd kept my identity hidden. They hadn't just underestimated me, they'd stopped seeing me as family the moment I chose my path. Sarah appeared at the door, her tablet glowing. Everything's in place for the 9 a.m. board meeting, she said, hesitating. Are you sure about this, Gabriella? They're still your family. I turned, meeting her gaze. They stopped treating me like family when they called my work embarrassing, I said, my voice steady. Tomorrow, they'll see what a little startup can do. I returned to my desk, opening my laptop to review the press release that would announce Nexus's takeover. The words were sharp, precise, a declaration of power that would ripple through the tech world. Another message from Marcus. Board members confirmed. Your family's in for a shock. I leaned back, the weight of 3 years, hiding, planning, enduring, settling into a quiet resolve. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Anderson Tech's conference room, not as Gabriella Anderson, the failure, but as Catherine Collins, the woman who'd outmaneuvered them all. The gala's champagne toasts and my mother's pearls would be forgotten in the wake of what I'd built. As the city skyline glowed beyond my window, I knew one thing for certain. The daughter they'd dismissed was about to rewrite their legacy. 3 years ago, the sterile glow of Anderson Tech's boardroom felt like a cage, its outdated servers humming faintly behind glass walls. I stood at 32, my heart pounding as I presented my report to my father, Richard, and his inner circle, Sophia smirking from her seat. My slides detailed vulnerabilities, aging infrastructure, unpatched systems, a cybersecurity disaster waiting to happen. We need to modernize, I urged, my voice steady despite the dismissive glances. If we don't, Anderson Tech will be a target. I believed then that facts could sway them, that my family would see the urgency. I was wrong. Richard leaned back, his fingers steepled. Gabriella, you're overreacting, he said, his tone dripping with condescension. These systems have served us for decades. Sophia chimed in, her voice syrupy with false pity. Maybe you're just jealous of my new role in acquisitions. Stick to your spreadsheets. The room chuckled, and my cheeks burned, not from shame, but from the realization that they'd never listen. I'd spent years at Anderson Tech, climbing from intern to strategist, only to be reduced to the other daughter. You're not seeing the bigger picture, I pressed, pointing to the projected losses. Millions if a breach occurred. Richard cut me off, his eyes cold. Leave the real decisions to those who understand them, Gabriella. Focus on something smaller. The words landed like a slap, echoing Sophia's smug grin. I gathered my files, my resolve hardening. They thought I was chasing their approval, but I was done begging for a seat at their table. That night, I walked out of Anderson Tech for the last time, the Silicon Valley skyline a silent witness. In my apartment, I sketched the blueprint for Nexus Technologies, a company that would outstrip its outdated empire. I'd build it in secret, using my savings and a network of allies who believed in my vision. My family's rejection wasn't a wound, it was fuel. As I typed the first lines of Nexus's mission statement, I vowed to create something they couldn't ignore, something that would force them to see me. 3 years later, standing in my Nexus office, I was no longer that dismissed strategist. I was Catherine Collins, and tomorrow I'd show them what smaller could achieve. Back in the present, the clock on my Nexus office wall ticked toward midnight, the Silicon Valley skyline a constellation of ambition beyond my windows. I sat at my desk, the weight of tomorrow's meeting settling into my bones. The documents before me were a map of my triumph, a security audit exposing Sterling Industries' crumbling defenses, a valuation slashing their worth by $2 billion, and a dossier dismantling Sophia's merger as a house of cards. My family thought they were signing a legacy-defining deal in 9, and I, Gabriella Anderson, their overlooked daughter, was about to rewrite their story. Sarah slipped into the room, her tablet casting a soft glow. The final reports are locked in, she said, her voice cautious. The press release is ready to go the moment you approve it. She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. Gabriella, are you sure? This will gut them. They're your family. I leaned back, the leather of my chair creaking softly. Family. The word tasted bitter, like the coffee cooling on my desk. They stopped being family when they laughed at my warnings, I said, my voice low but firm. When they called my work a hobby. This isn't revenge, Sarah. It's accountability. I opened the audit, my fingers tracing the highlighted flaws, backdoors in Sterling's code, unencrypted data, losses hidden by creative accounting. My team had spent months dissecting their systems, invisible to Anderson Tech's radar. Sophia's due diligence had skimmed the surface, dazzled by Sterling's inflated stock. I'd offered their CEO a choice weeks ago, public exposure or a quiet takeover by Nexus. He'd chosen survival, signing the papers in a discreet meeting while Sophia planned her victory lap. Marcus's message pinged on my laptop. Boards confirmed for 9:00 a.m. Your sister's already prepping her speech. I imagined Sophia, practicing her sound bites, oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. I typed back, let her talk. It'll make the silence louder. Closing the laptop, I stood, crossing to the window. The city pulsed below, a machine I'd learned to steer while my family clung to their rusting gears. Nexus wasn't just a company, it was proof that success didn't need their applause. Sarah lingered, clutching her tablet. The media's already calling it the deal of the decade, she said. What happens when they find out it's yours? I turned, a faint smile tugging at my lips. They'll realize the quietest person in the room was the one they should have watched. I took the tablet, scanning the press release. The words were surgical, announcing Nexus's acquisition of Sterling and hinting at Anderson Tech's missteps. It was ready. Send it at 10 a.m. tomorrow, I said, after I've said my piece. As Sarah left, I sat again, my mind replaying the gala. Sophia's smirk, my mother's pearls, my father's disdain. 3 years of their voices had built this moment, each slight a brick in Nexus's foundation. Tomorrow, I'd walk into their conference room not as their failure, but as the woman who'd turned their empire inside out. The skyline glittered, a reminder that power wasn't in the loudest voice, but in the moves no one saw coming. The morning sun sliced through the glass walls of my private office across from Anderson Tech, casting long shadows over Silicon Valley's waking ambition. From my vantage point, I watched the conference room below buzz with camera crews and board members, a stage set for Sophia's triumph. At 35, I stood in a tailored Armani suit, no longer the modest facade I'd worn at the gala, but armor for the battle ahead. My phone buzzed with a final message from Marcus. "Your sister's mid-interview, showtime." I checked my watch, 9:45 a.m., and took a breath. The daughter they'd called embarrassing was about to claim their spotlight. I crossed the street, each step a bridge between the Gabriella Anderson they knew and the Catherine Collins I'd become. Marcus and Sarah flanked me, briefcases heavy with the truth that would shatter my family's illusions. Through Anderson Tech's lobby, I glimpsed Sophia, her voice bright as she spun her merger narrative for reporters. My father stood nearby, fixed his proud gaze on her, while my mother, adorned with her celebration pearls, beamed nearby. They had no idea their empire was moments from crumbling. The conference room doors swung open at 9:55 a.m., and silence fell like a guillotine as I entered, my team behind me. Sophia's interview halted, her words choking mid-sentence. "Gabriella?" she sputtered, her eyes wide. "What are you doing here? This is a private signing." I set my briefcase on the table, my movements deliberate. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm but resonant. "Shall we begin?" "Begin?" My father stood, his face reddening. "This is absurd. We're here for the Sterling merger. Where's their CEO?" I nodded to Sarah, who distributed folders to the stunned board. "Mr. Chen won't be joining us," I said. "He signed the final paperwork last night." Sophia's voice rose, shrill. "That's impossible. I have the merger agreement here." She clutched her documents as if they could anchor her unraveling reality. "That agreement is void," I said, watching her open the folder, her face draining of color. "Sterling Industries has accepted a different offer." My father's fists clenched. "What are you talking about? Who—" I cut him off, my tone steel. "Nexus Technologies, or more specifically, me." The room froze, cameras swiveling as reporters sensed a seismic shift. Sophia laughed, a brittle sound. "You? Your little startup couldn't possibly—" "That little startup is worth $12 billion, I said, clicking a remote to display Nexus's financials on the screen. "We're the largest cybersecurity firm in the country. While you mocked me, I built an empire." My mother's pearls clinked as she sank into her chair, whispering, "But your tiny office downtown—" I met her gaze. "A front. Nexus owns this building. And as of last night, we own Sterling Industries." "Why?" My father's voice cracked, betrayal in his eyes. I gestured to Sarah, who handed out more documents, Sterling security breaches, hidden losses, and a valuation half what they'd believed. "You missed this," I said. "Your due diligence failed because you bet on Sophia's arrogance instead of facts. I gave Sterling's board a choice, exposure or acquisition. They chose us." Sophia's hands trembled, flipping through pages. "This will ruin us," she whispered. "No," I corrected. "This will save you. Nexus offers to acquire Anderson Tech at a fair price, before the market sees your vulnerabilities. You have 12 hours. The board leaned forward, their loyalty to my father wavering as they scanned the numbers. My mother turned to him, pleading, "Richard, do something!" But he was silent, his empire slipping through his fingers. I stood, surveying the room. "You called my work embarrassing," I said, my voice carrying to every corner. "You dismissed my ideas, belittled my choices, and assumed my silence was weakness. Remember this moment. The daughter you ignored now holds your fate." Sophia's composure cracked, tears welling. My father avoided my gaze, his shoulders slumped. I walked to the door, pausing. 12 hours. Choose wisely. The sunset painted Silicon Valley gold as I stood in my Nexus office, the city a testament to what I'd built. The morning's chaos had settled into signatures and surrenders. Sophia, escorted from her office, had left in silence, her perfect facade shattered. My father handed over his keycard without a word, his legacy reduced to ink on a page. My mother's celebration pearls lay forgotten on the conference table, a relic of their fallen dynasty. I sipped water, not champagne, as Marcus entered, his expression soft. "Was it worth it, Gabriella?" he asked. "All those years in the shadows?" I turned to the window, the skyline a canvas of my choices. The gala's taunts, the years of condescension, had driven me, but they weren't the whole story. It wasn't about proving them wrong, I said. It was about proving what success could be, something meaningful, not just their titles and galas. Marcus nodded, leaving me to the quiet. The press release had gone out at 10 a.m., and by noon, headlines crowned Nexus the new titan of tech. Anderson Tech's stock stabilized under our offer, but the Anderson name was no longer its heart. A year later, Silicon Valley had shifted. Anderson Tech, under Nexus's leadership, embraced cutting-edge systems. Its vulnerabilities were patched, and its future was bright. Sophia found a mid-level role at a smaller firm, her arrogance tempered by humility. My parents, their dynasty dissolved, retreated from the gala circuit, their pride a casualty of their blindness. I saw them once, at a charity event, their glances fleeting, no words exchanged. They'd learned what I'd known all along: family wasn't guaranteed by blood. Nexus grew, not for their approval, but for the thousands who relied on me, employees, clients, innovators. We launched new platforms, secured global contracts, and redefined cybersecurity. Each step was a reminder that success wasn't in the loudest voice, but in the work that endured. When asked about my path, I told the truth. Sometimes the best response to those who doubt you is to build something so undeniable their mistake dawns too late to matter. My family's lesson was mine too, not to linger on their errors, but to create, to last, to lead. As I stood in my Nexus office a year after the takeover, the Silicon Valley skyline no longer felt like a battleground, but a horizon of possibilities. The triumph over my family's dismissal had been exhilarating, yet it left a quiet truth in its wake. Success wasn't the act of proving others wrong, but the courage to define it on my terms. I'd spent years fueled by their mockery, each slight a spark for Nexus's rise, but that fire had risked consuming me. Sophia's humiliation, my father's defeat, my mother's shock, they were not the victory I'd imagined. The lesson settled deep. True achievement lies not in settling scores, but in building something enduring, free from the need for external validation. I'd hidden as Catherine Collins to outmaneuver them, but in doing so, I'd nearly lost Gabriella, the woman who dreamed not of revenge, but of innovation. Now, as I led Nexus into new frontiers, I vowed to create for the sake of progress, not applause. My family's underestimation had pushed me to greatness, but it was my choice to let go of their shadows that freed me to soar.